Welcome to Behind the Shield, your monthly deep dive into the ever-evolving world of cybersecurity. Join us as we explore insights, real-world hot topics, and best practices to stay one step ahead of cyber threats. This is episode 25, and I am your host, Marco Estrella. Thank you for joining us today. If you're here, you must be a security enthusiast, or at the very least, cyber curious. On the show today, we got some delicious hot topics. We got BCDR mistakes leading to ransomware, critical patches you need to know about, Google Pixel phone scams, and more. You'll also be glad that you've decided to give us a listen today because we're kind of on a hot streak with our guests. And this month will not be an exception. It's my honor to introduce AppDome's co-creator and CEO, Mr. Tom Tovar. Hey, Tom, how's it going?
It's going great. Thanks for having me here. Looks like a really exciting conversation.
Excellent. Well, welcome to Behind the Shield. I typically ask our guests to give us their background, but when I look at your title there, co-creator and CEO, I have to admit it's the co-creator part that attracts me the most. What made you co-create AppDome?
Yeah, thanks for that. And I agree with you on the title. Nobody wants to talk to the CEO these days. So I agree with you wholeheartedly. I think the thought behind creating the product was really to make it easier for cyber professional to deploy the protections they need in the mobile apps that we all use every day. I think if we can eliminate the work and the friction to get security out the door and into a production environment, it's good for the world, it's good for the brand, it's good for the business, and ultimately it's good for us as users as well. So that was kind of the thought process. We wanted a vending machine for mobile defense. That was our design principle in the early
A
days.
vending machine for mobile defense.
Yep, exactly. You typically select the things that you want. You pull the proverbial lever or push the proverbial button, and out comes all of the protections you need added to a mobile application instantly. To make it easy for folks to get that in the market. So, yeah.
When you say mobile, phones, obviously, tablets,
virtuality headsets, wearables, automobiles, refrigerators, anything with a mobile operating system in it, we can handle, including things like OS, mobile games for PC, things like that.
Okay, great to have you, Tom. So later on the show, the panel and I, we have some questions for you, about, your specialties. And today the show has a strong artificial intelligence flavor, which is, and mobile devices, which I think both are exactly right up your alley. So we're going to have some questions for you. And I haven't had, to be honest, everybody's talking about artificial intelligence, but the mobile angle is interesting to me. Haven't heard too much on that aspect yet, so I'm going to be eager to hear your answers. If you are listening, so I'm talking to the audience now, if you're listening to this live taping of the show, please feel free to submit any questions to the panel, to myself, to Tom, throughout in the Zoom question and answer interface. And, Jackie at Master Control will secretly feed me all your questions, so I look exactly like I know what I'm doing. And we'll try to get to as many questions as I can. And speaking of panel, I'm going to introduce them now, obviously, my trusty sidekicks of cybersecurity experts. So from Montreal, we have Virtual Guardian CEO, Patrick Naum.
Hello, everyone. Nice to see everyone again.
From St. Paul. You are in St. Paul, Bill?
I'm in St. Paul today, correct.
In St. Paul, Virtual Guardian USA President Bill Strube. Hey, Bill.
Hello. For those in Canada, I hope you had a wonderful Thanksgiving. For those here in the U.S., have a great Thanksgiving next week.
There you go.
Well said.
And from West Virginia, Virtual Guardian's Senior Director, U.S. National Sales and Solution Architects, Jason Williams. Hey, Jason.
Hello.
So before we get into the hot topics, I know you selected another selection of great hot topics. I wanted to have your opinion. We saw another merger this past week, which we've been talking a lot about mergers in the past episodes of Behind the Shield. So Cybereason and TrustWave were the two latest companies to merge. Any Any comments on this by the panel or by Tom?
So I think it's interesting. I think it's very interesting a wave coming together with Cybereason. I think it's very interesting that Cybereason had exited North America 2 years ago, I believe now to date, to focus on the European market, especially where, them being coming out of the Israeli back end there. And now moving back into a merger that could put them back in North America. So it's going to be interesting. And then also how the two leverage the technology seamlessly to go to market. We're starting to see platforms continue to grow, right? That's been the story, platform. And that gives Cybereason a new platform to roll ahead with.
Yeah, I'll just be interested to see what that platform looks like. I like Cybereason and knew several folks that were at Cybereason. Was actually a bit disappointed when they left the market. I thought that things were going relatively well, especially with the clients that we knew that were that already had Cybereason deployed there. But now, again, to your point, Jason, looking forward to seeing what that brings for new life here in the States and Canada, North America.
I'll tell you, coming from the ransomware backend, that was one of the hardest ones to get past. So my hats were off to them. They were a tough platform.
Do you remember why they left the North American market?
Adoption and trying to go IP, in my opinion, and based on some of the news that was out there, adoption, and then as well as the trying to go IPO. Oh. I think they missed 2 to 3 times their IPO dates. So it was more to regroup, focus on where they were strong, and then start to work their way back.
Okay. All right. Well, thanks for the comment. So let's get into the hot topics. We have, Jason, you are up first, and your first hot topic is about BCDR. And for those not familiar there in the audience, it's business continuity, disaster, and response. So BCDR mistakes leading to ransomware. So what are those mistakes?
I find it interesting, but before I go into that, I was very intrigued about the vending machine comment by Tom. I'm just figuring, I just had visions of three Musketeer bars hitting me as I'm working on that. So since he's co-founder and creator, if he can work on that for me, that would be great.
Or Mars bars for others.
Absolutely.
Well, it's on the roadmap. We'll definitely.
It's on the roadmap. Great. Perfect.
Roadmap.
Awesome. No, so this is very interesting. We have a number of interesting topics. This one was pretty unique because I was surprised to see the headline of a BCP, a BCDR, business continuity disaster recovery, leading to ransomware. But they had 5 major topics in this article that were very interesting. The one being, which we've all been hearing for a number of years now, especially from the backup community, is immutability. And, a lot of organizations relying on local immutability and thinking that it was enough. And so when we start to look at this, it is, we talked about immutability. We talked about from a backup perspective. We talked about it on this show before. And I'm very happy that this is a 25th episode because this is my 25th year anniversary in November. So matches up. So I guess this is part of my show for this month. So that's good. But you look at this from local immutability. And we always talk about, solutions could sit there and be able to track diffs and things like that in the backup structure to see if it's been compromised. But it continued to lack in dwell time of an adversary. And so how long a threat had been in there, the backups containing the backdoors and things like that. So it goes through talking about from step 1, how you build out your immutability, how you look at additional access controls, how do you look at different bootable methods and things like that to be able to recover. It talks more about that. It talks about not only from a mutability standpoint, but also we have a lot of organizations that are still relying on primarily Windows backup-based software. And, well, while that's good in some aspect, it's the biggest attack vector from an OS perspective. So it started to leverage a lot of the CVEs that are now coming out and how threat actors are actually looking at utilizing WMI scripts and things like that might not be able to be detected inside the program. And so what it was doing, it's starting to go through on the typical things that organizations are doing and then how to strengthen them or how to pivot them into other areas to look at. Another area of focus was on how often you're testing your recovery backup solutions or fleet recovery. And with Tom coming from the mobile world as well as he was coming from NetScreen and so forth like that, knowing it fairly well on backup and recovery, we don't test past 10 to 15% of a fleet burn down. So, if you start to look at 30%, 50%, 70%, that effort and that operational downtime is significant. So the article was really starting to go through the top areas to look at to build your a sound business continuity disaster recovery and to mitigate the gaps that it can open up to adversaries, both from a dwell time and persistence, as well as from a leading to not only a malware payload, but a ransom payload on the back end.
Okay. I see.
And I think a long time you've had kind of disaster recovery and kind of cyber defense as two completely separate things. And so people tend to think as long as the data is there and I can get it back, then that's fine. But it gives a whole new kind of view as to what a DDoS attack is or what a network takedown attack, what the goals of it are. If I can force you into a disaster recovery cycle and grab that data as you're repopulating it back down into your endpoints, hey man, that's a very easy way to do it. I don't even have to crack whatever security you have at the back end. I just catch the data as it's coming out of your back end down into your endpoint. So I do think it's a very, very interesting thing. As you guys were talking, I opened up a ChatGPT thing and I asked it, there's I was like, wow, check out all these vectors that you could really attack with a disaster recovery. And I think, for example, I was on the phone with a very large healthcare organization today, and he made a statement, and this is more about the mobile app. He said, yeah, we don't really store data in the mobile app. And I kind of smiled. I said, well, I run cyber research, and let me tell you, every mobile app stores data. So you shouldn't have that theory in your head that, we don't have any data in the app, so there's nothing to protect. Every system in your flow, in your pipeline, has data, whether it's in the back end, your disaster recovery, all the way down into your client. You need to make sure that the ingresses and egresses are all protected and the stores at rest are there as well. So this is very interesting to me. I had not heard of this, and it just everything just kind of like you said, kind of clamming together. So I like it.
Yeah, this article was actually on the Hacker News, which they provide a lot of information, but it was very interesting. And to your point, one of the major areas which I didn't touch on right away in the beginning was SaaS-based applications and the data and how you go through a 3-2-1 backup rule, making sure you have MFA as well as the APIs that are supporting it. So to your point, that transit, that at rest, and then we normally rely on our CSP or the vendor that's hosting that information to protect it, but we still own the data, and that's what a lot of people forget. So,
all right,
awesome.
Thank you very much, Jason. Tom, you also wanted to pitch in with a hot topic today, so you're doing double duties, and you wanted to talk about the FTC and deceptive AI scams. Tell us about it.
Well, I think it's one of the most interesting things that we're seeing in our business, and I thought I'd just put it on the list of something to make sure everyone was aware of. AI, when we talk about AI, everyone kind of focuses on LLMs and LLM jailbreaking and data leakage through LLMs and so forth. There's a lot of conversation about that, but I think that the really kind of fascinating part for me is the use of AI for voice cloning, face ID bypass, deep fakes, things of this nature, which are getting into the popular kind of consciousness now by virtue of successful attacks, where people are using AI basically to mimic all manner of things, whether it's a support personnel, whether it's a brand representative, whether it's literally your son or your daughter calling you and saying, hey, I'm in trouble, I need some money, and can you wire some stuff to me and stuff like that. So, all of the different local agencies of the FTC and others are coming out with all these advisories. All the banks have kind of said, hey, be on guard for all these scams that are happening. It's not us, and so forth. And I think that, the defense community is we're a little bit on our back foot as a community trying to say, okay, how do we deal with this? In particular, because some of our holy grails like liveness checks and Face ID and so forth are now under siege by just how good AI has become. And so I think personally for me, 3 to 6 months out, I'm telling customers, be prepared. Your liveness checks are going to be obsolete. So, pay attention to the kind of the evolving nature of what authentication means in a world of AI. And so it's a topic that I think all of us in the community have to really kind of focus on and figure out ways to sort it out. If you haven't seen the news about people using AI to participate in Zoom calls, I mean, for all we know, Bill is not Bill right now. He's an AI, he's an AI replica of Bill, not as good as the real thing, but perhaps
might be Tom, it might be better. I'm not sure.
Yeah, but otherwise indiscernible to the rest of us. So I just wanted to put it on the table because I do think it's going to have big implications, certainly in the next 12 to 24 months, on how we think about authentication, what's actually clearing those steps, and what additional checks that we have to make sure are happening to safeguard, accounts and resources, et cetera. So,
do you need to report a cyber threat? Virtual Guardian's emergency response team can take immediate action. Responding and recovery are vital to ensure your business-critical services are maintained. Visit virtualguardian.com and click on Report a Cyber Threat in the upper right-hand corner. Or call us at 1-800-401-TECH. That's 1-800-401-8324.
We have to go back to the analog times, right? I mean, if you look at, voice recognition, the family scams, which we've heard about. I mean, I've talked to my wife about this, and we have to implement a secret password, right? That way you could validate amongst yourselves. I could even do it within an organization to validate some requests. But in terms of the authentication versus an application, then obviously it becomes more complicated because you have no response and no intimate knowledge. So to your point, I mean, we have to be mindful, especially for identity theft and fraud on a personal level. There are ways to do it, but they're mostly analog when you think about it, short term.
Yeah. Yeah. And I know we're going to talk about it later, but we're going to be also entering a world where we have AI agents on phones that do things for us. So that's going to change.
On our behalf.
Yeah. Okay, we'll keep that for later on in the show.
I'm going back to a beeper.
No, you don't want that. They could blow up.
We talked about that. Never mind. I forgot about the weaponizations. Anyway.
Moving forward.
Yes. Yeah, moving forward. So hot topic number 3, Patrick, you're up. There are some critical patches that are worth mentioning to our audience this Wednesday.
It's not so much the critical patches, but just an update. I haven't looked at the Microsoft patching process in a while. And an article from CrowdStrike attracted my attention. We just left October, which was Cybersecurity Month. So I looked into, what's the landscape like in terms of 0-day and overall vulnerabilities in a Microsoft world. So in November, this is fresh information. 158 vulnerabilities were picked up on Patch Tuesday. 4 were critical, one of which was interesting. They called it critical. They've identified it, but they've also mentioned it was fully mitigated by Microsoft with no user interaction. That actually is what attracted my attention. I'll get back to that in a moment. So if you look at the rest of the key vulnerabilities, 3 0-day attacks, and if you look at the vulnerabilities, 59% remote code execution, 29% elevation of privilege. So the 2 main ingredients for ransomware attacks, right, are lateral movement, are still there, still prevalent. But of all the vulnerabilities, the first one is interesting of the platforms. It's Microsoft Mariner, which is their Linux distribution for Azure. So you could tell there's a lot more work for Microsoft to do around the Linux platform, which is not core business necessarily, especially on Azure. And it relates to what I'm going to mention in a second, which is vulnerabilities that are associated with cloud services. So what I did not know is that up until this summer, this is specific to Microsoft. I don't know what the others are doing, Google and AWS. Up until this summer, Microsoft would not declare when there are vulnerabilities that did not affect clients. So if their vulnerability did not require client intervention, they would not report it. This changed actually over the summer with their Microsoft Security Response Center. They've decided to create, obviously the other thing I noted, you're talking about 25 years, Jason, it's the 25th year of the CVE. CVE standard or repository. So that I didn't know. So Microsoft created a cloud service CVE, and they've decided for full transparency. As you know, it's critical to them now, and they've announced, was it a year ago, that they will have full transparency in everything they do around cybersecurity. They decided to disclose vulnerabilities, even though they don't require client action. And this is with the intent of sharing information, putting stuff out there, making sure that people they attract people's attention to probably help out and identify some of these that consider cloud instances or affect cloud instances. And it was not reported. So maybe I submit this to the group. Maybe you guys know, but I don't know if AWS and Google report when there's vulnerabilities in their cloud instances, even though there's no user intervention that's required. So that was the bulk of what attracted my attention, and obviously the Microsoft Response Center, which I didn't know existed. So that's really where this led me to in terms of the research. The other thing is obviously with all these zero-day vulnerabilities and patching, you really need to be ready for them, right? You have to have mitigation strategies, whether it's around limiting lateral movement, making sure you have micro-segmentation in place, proper IAM and IAM governance is critical. And as well as data protection, to your point earlier, Jason, business continuity plans and disaster recovery plans for those zero-day attacks. It's not a question, because some of them can be patched, right? At least for a while. So it's also a reminder of what to do and what to think about, because there's still zero-day vulnerabilities out there on a monthly basis.
Okay. Any comments on that, gentlemen? Panel?
I think it'd be interesting to go back and look and just see how many zero-day vulnerabilities there have been. I'm not going to pick on Microsoft, but just across all major product lines and major operating systems, it's a staggering number. That much I know. The exact number I don't have off the top of my head.
Is there I wonder if there's
I figured since you're AI, Bill, I figured you know that right out of the gate. So
no, unfortunately, you got the downgraded real version today. So this is actually me.
Not at 4 yet.
So, Bill, you are next, and we're switching gears. Cybersecurity, it's seen still by today as like a necessary evil, a necessary expenditure. But the article that you saw and what caught your attention wanted to share a different point of view. Tell us about it.
Yeah, well, this article was in Forbes. It was written by Dave DeWalt. Dave DeWalt's been in the industry for a long time. Thought leader from McAfee. He was at FireEye. He currently runs you could call it a think tank. You could consider it an investment organization. It's actually a little bit of both and then some, called Night Dragon. But he's been doing cybersecurity for a long time. He's really imploring us to rethink cybersecurity from cost center to value driver. And the points that you made earlier, yes, traditionally cybersecurity has been seen as a necessary evil, a cost center, not a value add. A lot of organizations have taken more of a checkbox approach to cybersecurity to make sure that you can protect against basic threats as well as maintain compliance. And this article says we need to rethink or look at how do we shift from that traditional stance to really adding value to your clients and being able to attract new clients and drive digital transformation as we continue to move forward. The article does point out some existing interesting statistics around the challenges that we have. So it is estimated that in 2025, there's going to be 10.5 trillion in annual cyber damages. There is a new cyber attack every 39 seconds, which is 2,244 attacks daily. And 59% of the organizations in a Sophos survey reported ransomware in the past year. So needless to say, we have some failures with the traditional approach of only looking at this from a cost center. It's costing all the organizations that have taken that approach, not just in financial terms of having to deal with these attacks, but also potentially in reputation, value of brand, as well as potential loss in clients. So the benefits are the flip side of that. If we look at cybersecurity from a strategic perspective and leveraging things like AI, since we brought it up earlier, it's also mentioned in the article itself. continue to equip our teams with knowledge and understanding how do we combat advanced threats, both from a technology perspective, but also things that we can do from process and procedures, and integrate cybersecurity really into the fabric of the business itself, starting with your leadership team at the board level, all the way down to individuals that perform almost every function or any function within an organization, making them cyber aware. You create a culture where cybersecurity is embedded. You actually have very positive results for the overall business. And those results should be enhanced customer loyalty and trust, avoiding regulatory penalties like the new, and also filing with SEC if you have a significant event within your organization. So it's a really good call to action to increase cybersecurity from a cost center to a core value proposition with your organization, and see it as a value driver, not something that you have to do.
Yeah, I chime in here with something. I don't know if you guys saw it. We just published a global consumer survey. We have them for the United States and pretty much every major country in the world. And we went out, we asked 112,000 people. We asked consumers, users, kind of their views on cybersecurity and fraud, and and in particular, we wanted to know how important is it? Is it a kind of a, the old internet adage, where I take the features over the security any day. As long as the features are great, who cares about the security? The interesting thing is you find that consumers don't think that anymore. In fact, on balance, they would choose something that's more secure to something that is more full-featured. So right. And to report that, safety, security, fraud protection, et cetera, are equal, if not slightly more important than the features in an application. And when this survey is something we hand out to our CISO customers, and we say, look, when you're going to talk to the business about budget and so forth, let them know that your consumer users, your customers actually value this. And there's a couple of other stats in there that I'll add is while it's no surprise that 76 to 80% of people will abandon an app or churn from a brand if they're hacked or breached or something like that. That's not hard to imagine, right? Mm-hmm. More interesting thing is 96% say that they will actively promote and support a brand that protects them from threats. So the consumer is more willing to advocate and go on a social media positive rant for a brand that protects them than they will leave a brand that hurts them. So that's a very interesting flip. Most consumers also think this is the brand and the enterprise responsibility. So do it anyway. So I think what I tell our CISOs is there's this rare moment in history. And again, this might be unique to the mobile side. We didn't, we asked about the feeling overall. So the survey is not limited to that. But I tell people this is probably a very unique time in history in the last couple of years where the voice of the consumer is so much on your side. So you've got the power to go in there, to ask for budget, to get the things that you need, because it's not just important to the business in a theoretical sense, but it's important to the people who are actually paying the bills.
Right.
Is your company digitally resilient? 75% of small businesses have no disaster recovery plan, and backup copies do not guarantee an organization's ability to get back to business. For more than 25 years, ESI Technologies has specialized in IT continuity, reducing financial and operational impacts for our clients. Learn more about digital resilience from ESI's experts at esitechnologies.com.
So would you equate the feature to security comparison with pricing as well? Did you analyze that in the survey versus additional costs for more security?
Yeah, we looked at all the different, and we asked hundreds and hundreds of questions. So this is all we have statisticians that come in and help us slice and dice the data and make sense of it all. The interesting thing is price elasticity is the same, regardless of the perception of the security of the application. But the LTV, the potential lifetime value of a customer, is obviously a lot less if the application has less defenses in it than if it has more defenses in it. You get to a certain point where the most is, it sort of loses its notion in the consumer, but clearly they want protection for their data. They want protection for their login. They want protection for their identity. They want protection for their experience and their transactions and those kinds of things. So you can't just assume that, hey, all I have to do is protect my perimeter. They're definitely expecting that to extend out to their usage as well.
Plus, I would imagine if you ask a client, on a specific product, would you pay a little more to have it more secure? Their reaction may be, what do you mean? It should be inherently secure.
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
exactly.
Right.
I think that's the point. I think, and certainly, for those in the millennial and Gen Z environment who aren't immigrants to these technologies, they're natives, they come into the experience with that expectation of security. So when you look at the data on a age basis, they're very much more likely to abandon an application if they think, hey, there's no defense here and so forth. But I think what Bill's pointing out is correct, that I think the consumer is on the side of the cyber team, basically saying, yeah, you're not just a cost center. You're part of the brand value and the brand promise of what we do every day. I think for every cyber guy who's ever fought for budget and ever the voice, man, having the consumer on your side is like
finally we might get some headway with budget, with traditional execs that didn't see cyber, would keep the leftovers for the end of the year pen test maybe.
Well, yeah,
they finally got to the grown-up table.
On top of that, I'm sure Jason knows this. You're also seeing like a fusion between fraud and cyber. So the cyber guys are working more, and that's pulling them more into the consumer experience as well. So I think from a role perspective, there's maybe a silver lining on the other side that says, hey, if you're a CISO and you're managing kind of your future and your group's future, the more you can pick up the fraud side or the bot defense side, the network side and all that, the more you're touching the user and the more you're going to have the ability to do what Bill's talking about, which is adding value.
Great hot topic, Bill. Great hot topic. Great comments. We have time before the interview. We have time for one more. Jason, anyone out there using Google Pixel as a phone might be very interested in hearing about your second hot topic.
What did you see? What do you have to tell me?
Oh, you have.
It's going to be very interesting. So I'm going to put my Edward Snowden hat on, and everybody put their phones in the microwave. Yeah. So we're going to be talking about what Google is doing from an AI standpoint and how they are going to be integrating technology from the AI side into the phone, inside the phone conversations. This is going to be interesting.
Oh boy.
So Tom talked about that phone having all the data. So you all have a ton of a great amount of data on the phone. Personal data, professional data.
Yeah.
Google, not only in the Pixel, it's starting with the Pixel devices, but it's going to be available also to other Android devices in the future, and OEMs, is generated a scam protection feature that will monitor phone calls. So they'll have to be in the phone call, and they will monitor phone conversations to detect patterns of fraud and scammers. And then a pop-up will come on the screen that that this has been detected to be a fraud or scam, and would you like to terminate the call? So you want to talk about now where we're going with technology and how it can be, we talked about deep fakes before when we talked about AI and somebody being able to get inside a communication string and change what's being heard to what's being delivered. Now we're putting actual technology inside phone conversations. So that's good in one part, especially for those that like to click every button on the phishing campaigns that we send out, as well as, when something pops up to send me a gift card, thank you for clicking. But you look at this from now, access to all data inside a phone and not just phone conversation, but everything occurring on that handheld device, tablet, etc., that you're using. So it's significant now on how that's going about.
Remember Minority Report? That's what we're getting to.
We're getting there. All right. So you think about that. And so the system will actually detect in real time based on the conversational patterns. So we're now looking at natural language processing and things like that. You won't be able to that AI is going to be able to tell what's going on at any given time. And depending if it's not hallucinating, it'll be able to provide you with the right result that this is a scam or a fraudulent conversation. But if a model gets corrupted or things like that, and I got the conspiracy hat on, it's tracking everything that's happening inside that phone.
So you could conclude, sorry for interrupting, but you could conclude that all those fraudsters and hackers are going to be buying Apple phones and launching their attacks from there. Because if they buy a Google Pixel, they won't be able to. They'll be intercepted at the source, right?
That's right. So it's just really interesting. We've been talking about how AI will be used moving forward, both on the professional side and on the personal side. And this is where it starts to bridge that gap on how much information is really going to be available to these AI models. And to me, interjecting into phone conversations, while to a certain extent is a great idea, on the back end, I think it opens up a lot of it raises a lot of eyebrows, and it raises a lot of concern on data sovereignty and things like that.
Jason, was there any mention of opt-out like there was for the latest Microsoft PCs that you could opt out of certain AI functionality if you so choose?
No, there was no opt-out in the article, really? So that's also interesting.
Gentlemen, thank you. Jason, thank you.
I'm walking around with a microwave from now on.
I have to cut the commentary. I wish we had more time, but I want to get to the interview with Tom. Thank you very much, panel. That was yet again another great hot topic segment. So we're gonna move on to the spotlight interview with Tom. And I wanted to make sure that the audience knew who AppDome was. So please bear with me. I want to do this correctly. AppDome is a no-code platform for securing mobile apps with integrated security features. In one single platform, mobile brands and enterprises can secure, monitor, and respond with 300 plus mobile app security, anti-fraud, anti-malware, anti-cheat, anti-bot, geo-compliance, and other defenses in Android and iOS apps. So that is AppDome in a nutshell. I really like Tom's analogy of the vending machine at the beginning of the show. I think that encompasses what I just read. And Tom, before the show, you gave the team a starting question for our reflection. How do we defend the mobile business when on-device AI agents emerge? And then based on that, there's a series of questions that we have for you. So are you ready, Tom?
Yeah. In fact, I really want to thank Jason. He kind of set it up perfectly. So his last hot topic. So.
All right. So the first question that we have is concerning that phrase is, what exactly is an AI agent?
Yeah. So an AI agent is essentially an autonomous program that takes action on your behalf and does things for you. So exactly the situation that Jason was referring to. You have an agent that is listening to your telephone calls, using, in that case, natural language processing, maybe some other types of, there's already, for example, technology out there to identify speech patterns and stress levels and things of that nature. So, combining all of that into an agent that is making decisions and providing you data in order to make your decisions. So AI agents are basically that. And I think we're starting to see the early stages of those show up on, mobile devices everywhere. So.
Okay. So it's going to be a common place to find them on any mobile device.
Yeah. Yeah. Some of the early examples of them, for example, are going to be, certainly those of you who use Apple know Siri. You probably know Alexa. Google Pixel is another one. I'm very for Siri right now. I'm an Apple lover, but Siri frustrates the hell out of me because sometimes I say, Siri, call so-and-so, and it doesn't answer, and I have to yell and raise my voice, and then it says, say it again. We're in the early days of this, but imagine a scenario down the line where, and some people predict very fast, like in the next 3 to 6 months. I'm not entirely sure if it's going to happen that quick, but where you can instruct an agent on your device to basically do things for you. For example, send mom, $100, or,
Yeah.
send my son $1,000 or whatever. The AI agent will then access your bank account, handle the transaction for you, find the recipient, in your contact, find their Venmo, send the money via Venmo, and do all that for you. So what that does, when you think about it, is it kind of when you start to unpack that, what it signals is an entirely new stream of authentication steps across all of those applications, because the user themselves is not signing into any of that. It's basically that machine basically doing that on behalf of the user. So I think, the early examples allow you to do that within closed environments, whether it's Apple iPhone or the Google Pixel. You have a certainly closed environments, but I think this is going to really explode and really open up as we look out of the next 12 to 24 months. Third parties are going to step in to do this. I have a couple of my own ideas about AI agents I can create and put on in the App Store and stuff like that. There's going to be all kinds of third parties stepping in to do this kind of thing.
Really? So to have their own Siri, their own Alexa, their own Cortana.
Correct. You're going to have Uncle Bob and Uncle Joe and Aunt Margaret, whatever, and they're all going to be competing for tasks that you need to accomplish to get done via your mobile device. So we're definitely entering a world, not just speech to query, but speech to action, where, that's just going to change the entire landscape for how we think about this stuff.
What do you need? What needs to happen to make AI agents work?
Well, that was the interesting thing about Jason's question. Already, if you think about the evolution of phones, and we were talking earlier about going analog versus digital versus mobile, even the notion, we started off with just passcodes, and then we went to fingerprint, and then we went to Face ID. And everyone thought that these things were relatively secure. The reality is, if you're a hacker like me, is that it's not that difficult to intercept these calls or to manipulate these calls or to superimpose images into these processes and workflows and so forth. So, and the reason for that is the minute you have an opening, the minute you have an API or some connection point between an application and operating system, the hacker has the ability to do something. So it's not just the agent that Google Pixel is going to use that's going to be able to listen to your calls, but it's pretty much any agent you deploy on the Google Pixel is going to be able to listen to those calls, because to provide that functionality is going to exist, and some hacker out there is going to figure out a way to plug into that and do whatever they want to do with whatever conversations you're having. So I do think mobile as an operating platform is going to open up to allow these agents to proliferate, because it's in all of our best interest to do so. But the bad guys are going to take advantage of those same mechanisms and basically say, hey, I can create an agent that can do this stuff in the background. I mean, already, for example, on Android, you have a concept of dual space or parallel spaces.
That's right.
I can operate my malware in one space while you're doing your thing over here in this space, and I can have the two talking to each other and you simply not know as a user. So
right, and how are you going to terminate it?
Yeah, exactly. Go ahead.
Tom, quick question on that. So do you think as we get further and further, especially in mobile, that we're going to see more refined levels of permission at the operating system level, and people take even folks like Google adopt maybe Apple's approach to what they allow to be done?
I think it's the other way. I think Apple's going to adopt more of the Android version allowed to be done. And in some ways, regulations in other countries are pushing them that way. So look what's happening in the EU, where Apple can no longer be the only app store out there. It's got to open up its operating system to other app stores. Well, the minute you download an app store onto your phone, you're allowing that application to install profiles on your device and control your device, et cetera, et cetera. So Apple is already moving in the direction closer and closer to Android, where you're going to have a much more open operating system, much more open ecosystem. And so the attack surface between Apple and Google is really, it's already more or less normalized, but it's going to really, really normalize in the age of AI. And I don't think, honestly, I don't think either vendor, or for that matter, Huawei with its operating system or whatnot, have any choice but to open up to these new AI tools that are going to come and make sense of all of our unstructured data on our phones and all of that. So I think as that happens, you're going to see a proliferation of new threats. What I like to tell our customers is that right now, for the next foreseeable future, 12 to 24 months, you do not have to tell right from wrong. You have to tell from true from not true. In other words, what's coming from the device legitimately, or what's being intercepted, manipulated, injected, and so forth. So don't worry about whether the image is live or not. Worry about whether it's a true image from the correct camera on the device, and you'll be okay, at least for now, for the next 12, 24 months, while we figure out what else to do. So I think we're going to be starting to look, security is going to change, at least on the mobile, to really a question of integrity, signal fidelity, less about, intrusion, not intrusion, or whatnot, because quite honestly, in an age of AI, everything's going to be an intrusion.
Yeah.
Does your organization qualify to get and keep cyber insurance? Businesses that want a new cyber insurance policy or to renew an existing policy need security controls in place to qualify. Virtual Guardian can assess your eligibility and help you comply cost effectively, improving your security posture and reducing risks to your business. Contact us at 1-800-401-TAC.
Patrick, I think you had a question as well.
Yeah, thanks, Marco. I just wanted to see, how do you see the digital twin fit in all this? Right, yeah. Our replica of our presence online. Will the digital twin be interacting with the AI? How does that play out?
I think it's already happening in our business. We have customers that are dealing with questions of very legitimate fake profiles that are out in the world being created. So imagine an AI, I like to start with simple examples and work up. So, one of the companies that I've invested in for a long time is GoDaddy. And I ran a DNS company. So I like DNS. And so I buy a bunch of domains. But GoDaddy came out with a whole new AI model that said, just tell us what your business does and we'll write your website for you. So you just put in a few lines and poof, pages and pages and pages of content get created for you, on the fly. So now imagine using AI to create fake social media profiles, fake interactions. We already know that, people use automation for trolling.
The Russians are the kings in that domain.
Exactly. So now imagine synthetic identities are created out in the world, which no doubt is happening already, maybe at a smaller scale, but with the advent of AI, faster. And so you have an incredible notion that if you have synthetic identities, doppelgangers, digital doppelgangers, is not hard to imagine either. So it is. I think we're going to see a rise in identity, synthetic identity theft, synthetic fraud. It's referred to with AI, and it means that some of the defense models we use in mobile, like, for example, the holy grail for a long time was RASP, anti-tampering, app shielding, code obfuscation. Obsolete. I mean, not necessarily obsolete, still good practice, still best practice, but definitely moving over here into the world where fraud and fraud type things are much more dangerous and much more serious. So you're going to have to kind of blend all of this together and have a holistic approach.
So each of us needs to have a certified, irrefutable digital identity to eliminate all the potential frauds or impersonations. Because if we don't have a digital identity, these tools and robots could easily act on our behalf. We'll have to find a way to
a blue check mark, a blue Twitter check mark.
Something like that.
I just thought, Patrick, you just had the real OG in front of your name. So, it was really you.
Yeah, the OG badge. I do think that if you look at kind of like from a defense perspective, like take for example, location, geo fraud as an example. There were several companies that came out that attempted to say, well, we're going to figure out the true location by bouncing telemetry off of Wi-Fi, access points and Bluetooth and our own satellites and whatnot. Nobody is going to replicate the infrastructure of Google and Apple and the accelerometer and geolocation of a phone. So I go back to what I tell my customers is what you have to make sure is that the location that your application is using is a true location. Like that is the key. You don't have to, AppDome doesn't have to launch satellites in the orbit to give you a true location. The phone can give you a true location if you can guarantee that the phone is not being instrumented, that there's no fake GPS apps, that you're not using a VPN, that there's no teleportation, that there's no desync attack, those kinds of things. So our strategy right now is to allow brands and enterprises to maintain signal integrity and signal strength, signal fidelity in all of the things that they rely on to, verify a user. Because if you can't do that, then trying to discern the fake profile from the real profile, that's going to get really hard very, very fast if it's not already the case. So,
which brings me to the next question. The liveness checks, the voice recognition you mentioned a little bit earlier. That's all gonna go away. Is AppDome working on something there, Tom?
Yeah, I mean, look, I think we already have our own, Face ID bypass, deep fake detection and so forth.
Okay.
Our methods are very different. I mean, I do think for now, liveness is still kind of a good thing to have. But keep in mind, AI is progressing at a very fast rate, and I expect, in a relatively fast period of time, the things that liveness checks rely on, which are going to be things like, blinking speed and, head movements and muscle twitches and that sort of thing. Those kinds of things are going to be able to be replicated by AI models. And so it may not destroy that market. I don't think that's going to happen, but it's definitely going to put a very high investment requirement into that market to stay ahead of AI. And that's going to make either the cost of those solutions go up, or it's going to mean there's a very rapid consolidation and only the best ones will survive, because I just think, at the end of the day, AI is going to be a very big pressure on that business. So I definitely think you're going to see some shifts for sure. You're already seeing that shift in phishing, in business email compromise scams, getting emails from your CEO that really sound like your CEO, those kinds of things. You're already seeing that. So I think it's just going to put a lot of pressure on we're going to go through a renaissance here in cyber and fraud.
A reckoning.
Where we all have to step up and say, okay, our models need to adjust to this stuff.
Hey,
it's
Tom,
just so interesting where we were, compared to before. I came from one of the Night Dragon companies, Safeguard Cyber. We had us, Zero Fox. We were looking at social attack mitigation, LinkedIn profiles, all online presence, impersonations. I mean, I think Paul Necazzoni had like 20,000 different profiles that were just fraudulent compared to him. And that wasn't even using AI at the time. So just the exponential growth that we're going to see in that, to your point, it's just going to be.
And we didn't even mention the word quantum computing in this call.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, the fake profiles and stuff have been out there, but it's always been the job for, Upwork and Fiverr and, go get a bunch of kids to do it for you. Now, not required. And you're going to see the same thing with like reputation bombing and stuff like, all of those things are going to really put strains on the way we think about our identities, the way we think about transaction integrity, the way we think about account integrity, account takeovers. One of the things that we're also seeing out in the world right now is, banking Trojans have been around for a while, In the early days, banking Trojans were nothing more than just kind of like spyware, overlays, keyloggers, that sort of stuff. I call it lead gen for the bad guys, just take the credentials, sell them on the dark web in bundles of 100, unverified username and password, buy 50 cents, verified username and password, $1,000. Those quickly evolved with some of the new malware that's come out, like Godfather and Gold Pickaxe and Toxic Panda and so forth, with very powerful command and control, right? Notions where the malware gets on your phone, it reaches out for an update, it gets new instructions, it's able to target different applications on your device and so forth. Fast forward 6 months, fast forward a year, those malware Trojans are now AI agents where they don't need a command and control. They don't need to call out. They're autonomously polymorphic and doing their own thing. And that is a very different world that we have to live in. Both of you are defending the perimeter from an enterprise perspective and safeguarding consumers from a fraud perspective. You have to be thinking about that. The speed at which the attacks are going to come is just going to increase exponentially.
So, Tom, we are running out of show, but I did want maybe this question here. You can answer in maybe 60 seconds, which probably will be impossible. But I'm thinking about all my customers here at Virtual Guardian and elsewhere, bending backwards, building zero trust environments. And then all these AI agents are here and all this AI. So what's going to happen to them?
Oh, wow. I was hoping you were going to ask something like that. I've been thinking of this. I've been thinking about this and thinking about whether, and I confess, I don't know the answer. I wish I had a crystal ball on that one, but I find it hard to believe that any monolithic, rigid structure is going to survive the exponential growth of AI. I think we're going to have to see, there's going to be a new model. It's not going to be zero trust that is going to evolve in a world where work is being done by AI agent. We're already using Copilot to do things. We're already using ChatGPT in our daily lives, to do everything from draft emails to clients, to do research on, topics and things that are necessary for our work. I don't think I don't think zero trust is going to survive. We're going to have to come up with a new flexible model.
Wow.
The surface is massive
here.
I don't know what it is. I don't know what it is. I don't know what it is. I wish I had the answer for it, but it's been rolling around in my head.
We've heard it here. Zero trust won't cut it anymore. We've heard it here, folks.
That just blew my mind. Okay.
I think it's going to be hard, guys. I mean, I don't know. You guys tell me. What do you quick answer? Let's take a poll. Bill,
I'll say the principles of zero trust have always been the same. I don't care if you go back to ancient times to where we're moving forward. It is, you need to have some sort of legitimate validation that the message you're receiving came from the sender and that it hasn't been interfered with somewhere from origination to your hands. How we do that, which I don't care if you want to call it zero trust or something else, is still going to always be our challenge to make sure that there is not someone in the middle or replacing what we have received to validate whether what we have is truth or somebody else's desired of interpretation of the truth that they want us to be presented with.
But I would argue that in terms of the least privilege component, it's going to be a challenge, because if you want that AI to do anything and execute anything, they're going to need a certain level of privilege. That could be me or you in an organization, or Marco or Jason, and that could create a lot of damage, right?
Well, and on top of that, the enforcement model was always black and white, right? If you have something that's a breach, you shut it down and not. Already in the consumer environment, certainly in mobile, and this is going to shock you guys, the gray area is larger than the black and white. The organizations are saying, okay, my customer's device is compromised. It has some piece of malware on it. I still may want to keep them in the application experience. I may not want to shut them down. What do I do?
Right.
Right. So now think about that from the enterprise, right?
The surface is so large, the data footprint and the lockdown from an identity side, it's going to be interesting on how we adopt.
Yeah, I agree.
Not adapt.
Architectures will have to change. It'll be an architecture game, big time.
Oh, gentlemen, we have to wrap up. I'm sorry, we're running out of runway. So I want to thank Jason, Patrick, and Bill, our panelists, for all their insights. And I want to thank Tom Tovar,
Yes, thank you.
co-creator and CEO of AppDome, for the interview, which could have gone on for another hour probably on these topics. Thank you very much, Tom, for participating. Hopefully you had some fun.
Yeah, no, I loved it. Thanks, guys. I'm happy to do it again. It's good to
Great.
just talk shop. It's great just to talk shop. So
Excellent. If you missed any part of today's event, the show will be made available sometime next week, wherever you find your favorite podcasts. I've been told that if you enter Behind the Shield in some podcast engines, you sometimes it doesn't pop up, but if you put Behind the Shield Cybersecurity Podcast, it'll pop right up. So give that a try. And I want to thank you, dear listener, with these podcasts, where we do these podcasts for you, right? And with all the podcasts out there to choose from, you decided to spend an hour with us. We thank you very much. We are on hiatus for December. No Behind the Shield during Christmas time or the holidays. So we hope to find you here again in the new year with the promises of more interesting guests, more hot topics, more cybersecurity discussions. So until then, remember, folks, when you're behind the shield, you're ahead of the game. Take care, everybody.
Thank you, everyone. Happy Thanksgiving. Happy holidays.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving, everybody, to our American friends.